So I'm thrilled to show you the exhibition right here. It's called Memory and Inheritance. It's at the museum at Eldridge Street. I am so honored to take you for a quick walkthrough. The works in this exhibition were made specifically, in fact, they weren't made now. They're over 30 years of work, but they were picked specifically to be in this space because it's a sacred space, and we wanted each piece in the exhibition to tell a story of memory and inheritance. This is the first piece I'll talk about is a Seder plate that all the works in this exhibition have important narratives, not only from a religious point of view, but from a point of view of how art and healing and redemption can come together. And the Seder is a time when the Jewish people believe that we were slaves in Egypt and we became a free people, and this is when we were leaving Egypt. And I lecture regularly at the Metropolitan Museum, and I've always been interested in, if you believe that we were slaves in Egypt and we became a free people, why not make the Seder plate be little Egyptian figures that help us celebrate our freedom. The most important color, I believe, which is a Jewish color, is tchelet, which is a bluish color, that when it comes out of either a snail or a small fish, it comes out clear and it goes through all the colors of the spectrum and then ends with this bluish color. So I wanted the basic color for the Seder plate to be blue, and then gold is for purification, and gold is also holiness. In the Holy of Holies, the angels were made out of gold. So the matzahs, the three matzot, sit on these three pieces here, and then the different elements that sit on top of the Seder plate are in these different small plates, and there's hand-blown glass that would go on top of them, and you put the elements in there. I like the idea that if we were leaving as slaves and you have matzah with you, all these trays come apart and you can place it on your head. So as you're running to be a free people, it can be part of the act of the story of leaving Egypt. The exhibition really starts over here. We made this exhibition to fit the space, so we created a template. I have to do a shout out to my amazing assistant, SAPHYR. We laid it all out and decided what pieces would make the space sing. So it's not only about individual pieces of mine that were done over 30 years, or 35 years, but individual works that work together in this space. This is my 70th solo museum exhibition. It's one of the smallest museum exhibitions I've ever had, but I love this space, and I'm so committed to the fact that it was once a synagogue and now is a space that teaches people about what holiness is. So this piece, I wanted to start the exhibition with this. Anyone who knows me knows that I was very close to my mother, whose name was LKAH. She was buried in Israel. I'm from a Kohen family, a priest family. That means until my mother's death, I would never at a funeral, because Kohens do not go to funerals. When she died, she was buried in Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem, you're not buried in a pine box, you're buried in a shroud. My mother wore Eileen Fisher clothing, and I turned to my sister and said, "Oh my God, Mommy looks great," because she was in a white shroud, and I felt it was so appropriate for her to be buried in a white shroud. It was beautiful. So when I go to the cemetery, I see the shadow of a tree, and it looked like, this image here looks like a golem. A golem is from the Golem of Prague. When Jews had problems, they always prayed to God to get saved, and this looks like an eye and a mouth, and it made me feel like there was somebody protecting our mother. These were little stones that were put on the stone next to my mother's grave, and I love the way this all came together. And in my mind, I wanted the blessing of my mother for this exhibition, so this is the closest I could get to her, was at her cemetery. This is an eternal light. In a synagogue, you have a light that is constantly lit, and this is the wooden carving of it, and I painted it to be exactly the way the bronze would look, and these are in different museum collections around the world. I always do an edition of either 3 or 7. This is the wood model. You may not touch this, but since I own this, I can. This is wood, and it looks just like that. Here, I wanted this exhibition to talk about nature and holiness and how we have to protect the environment, because I really believe from a religious point of view, we are not owning this planet, but we are guests on this planet, and God entrusted us to take care of it. So when I saw this beautiful flower, every year for my wife's birthday, we go on a trip somewhere. We went to Panama, and I saw those beautiful orchids that were hanging from trees. And this is the inside of the orchid, and it looked very much to me like a hanging human being. And I thought to myself, inside this orchid, it tells us, I'm very interested in fractal geometry and how everything in nature repeats itself. So this looked very much like a human figure hanging inside of the orchid, and I wanted the human figure to be non-gendered. So it just looked like a human being, not a man or a woman. But I also love that Adam and Eve were from one being, and then they became a full two people. This to me was an amazing project. Being an artist, it's always exciting to get commissioned. I've gotten many, many commissions. We'll see on the other side of the room 6 of my most well-known large outdoor installations. But I was commissioned with a group of artists by the Jewish Museum to look at early illuminated manuscripts and do paintings based on 15th, 16th, and 17th century illuminated manuscripts. I was the only artist who didn't want to have all the Hebrew letters in the illuminated manuscript in there. And I felt like if you're commissioning me to be an artist, why not be a little more conceptual and think about the fact that if you look at the letters, you'll see a tuf, a bet, different letters, and they're flying up to God. This is the color of the parchment, so I wanted the letters to be going straight up to God as a blessing, and I believe God understands every language, so you don't have to say specific letters or words. I want it to be very conceptual. Because we are blessed with 3 amazing children. Our son is not only the gabbai in his synagogue, which means he's not only taking care of a lot of the ceremonies in his synagogue, but he's an Ironman. He's a triathlete. And we were in we were in Costa Rica, and he was standing on these rocks under this freezing water. And I saw him there. He's right below here, but I didn't think that was interesting. And if you know anything about the Sistine Chapel, I love Michelangelo. And I've always minded that I love him. I think he's a great artist. I'm not putting him down at all. But in the famous Michelangelo painting of God and man, God looks like he's an old man. I don't believe God is gendered. And I also don't believe Adam was a bodybuilder. And if you look at Adam, he's like built, and if you're just a regular guy who's not built, then you feel like you were not born. But the most powerful part of that painting is the 2 hands meeting. Many artists are fascinated by that, including me. So in my mind, the water, I'm very interested in water and sky and how they interrelate. So this to me is like that hand almost touching. These are the trees. This is shadows of trees. This is the water, and this is the sky. If you look at it carefully, it looks like it's gold, but underneath the gold is blue because it's at sunset, and the sky gets this beautiful color gold. So it's as if the meeting of God and humanity. And to me, this is among my most religious paintings I've ever done. We're going to get to the Omer counter, which is the most well-known of all my Jewish liturgical pieces. My bar mitzvah speech, I was 13 in May, and my Seder, the portion that I was supposed to read was called Omer, which has got a lot of very difficult sections, and I had this amazing mother, as anyone knows, and I said to Mommy, Mommy, I'm not giving a Dvar Torah on my Parsha. And she said, then think of something else. And I said, what about the fact that I'm born between Passover and Shavuot, which is we go from, in the Jewish tradition, we go from slavery to redemption, which is 49 days. And she said, talk to Daddy. I talked to my father. I said, Daddy, I'm not speaking about the Parsha. And he goes, definitely not. I said, definitely not. He goes, what are you going to do? And I said, what about the Omer? And he said, okay. And they hired a rabbi to study with me about all the laws about this, and it was great. And when people say, what is the longest it ever took you to make a piece of art? And I said, from the age of 13 to 48. So I finally made this when I was 48. These are 49 different sculptures. Each sculpture comes out, and when you count the Omer, you take it out for that day, and you put it back in. I'm very proud that there are 29 of these variations in the world. The Jewish Museum has one, the Minneapolis Museum. They're all over the world, and in fact, my 3 children each own one of these as well. What I also like, I'm very committed to refracted and reflected light. I love diversity. I don't believe God would have made a world with everyone the same, and if they were the same, it would be unbelievably boring, and you'd never know who's who. So each piece looks more beautiful by the person next door to them. So that diversity is what I think is holiness. So if you look at it for a while, it first looks gold, and then it looks silver because there are many layers of color underneath. This is one of the versions. The first version is owned by the Jewish Museum. It's pewter. This is a 6-foot version of it. Then there are a whole series that are a little bigger. This is the smallest version that I've made. This was a project that I've been working on for many years called Dreaming of Sinai. I really find it intriguing that we as a Jewish people came to Sinai together, but I like that we're all different. I don't believe in anything I do, whether it's art or science, there's not only one answer. So I wanted to do different versions of how we came to Sinai and how we left Sinai. Did we come, and there are different midrashim on that, different stories of, were you one group, or did you go by your tribe, or did you go by similarities? And there's also different traditions of saying, was it one mountain or two mountains? So there are technically 9 of these that are one piece, but I decided for the first time to show these as just 3 because it wouldn't have fit well here as 9. So this is part of a larger project. Then we come to here. This is a series of, so all these pedestals were built for, when people say to me, these look great here. Well, hello, they were made to be used in this space. So this is a very small museum exhibition space. So I wanted to show very different pieces. Now, this is a piece that I did many years ago, but I never showed it before. This is a Star of David. I was commissioned by a major philanthropist to do a series for her. I didn't want to do it, but she convinced me because she was very generous and told me I got to do it, so I did it, but I never showed it. And I wanted to show that a Star of David is usually each individual section of the star. And I believe you can feel very alone, you can feel part of a larger community, so I decided to cut it into different sections and that it all comes together as a unit. And I think the most important thing in the world is learning how to be an individual but being part of society. This is one of the arcs that I've done. I've done many, many arcs. This is done for a Sephardic Sefer Torah, and it opens, and it's about all these pieces come together again as diversity. This charity box, during the AIDS crisis, there were many children, unfortunately, were dying of AIDS, and a series of hospitals asked me to do a series of charity boxes to collect for children who had AIDS. So I made charity boxes that looked very toy-like, and each of these 6, this is one of them, went to different hospitals. We raised a lot of money, and at the end of the time, I got all the charity boxes back. That was one of the, when my mother died, I was having a very hard time. I didn't want to go to services twice a day, which I did, to say Kaddish, which is the mourning for the dead. And as she was dying, in fact, I said to her, Mommy, I'm not saying Kaddish. I love you, but that's not my thing. And she said, do whatever you want. And I said, well, I better ask a rabbi. And she goes, I wouldn't ask a rabbi because you're not going to like the answer. I called my rabbi, who's Rabbi Saul Berman, and he said to me, this is not up to your mother. It's not up to you. It's a tradition. You got to do it. So I did it. And after a month, I kept complaining every day. And I heard my mother's voice saying, either stop complaining or stop doing it. And I then decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to continue going to services, but that is not going to be my Kaddish. And my Kaddish will be to do 11 art projects, remember the Sharon? In her memory, and things that would never have gotten done if my mother hadn't died. So at least something good came out of this. This, working with sick children, was something my mother really would have believed in. So I did altogether 11 projects in her memory, and that was, in my mind, my Kaddish. The shofar is a ram's horn that you use for the Jewish New Year, and you blow at different times. And I've always thought to myself, when you go up, if you ever go to synagogue again and you notice that they take out this very beautiful, important ram's horn, it's usually in a nothing bag. It has no elegance. And I think to myself, we're trying to beseech God to listen to us. Why don't you set it up in a beautiful sculpture that when you take it off, you feel the holiness of it. So I've made a series of these. This is one of them. The original one is an amazing collection in LA. But I also wanted to feel like the whole narrative of Isaac, binding of Isaac, that the ram took the place of Isaac. So why not put it on like a mizbeach, an altar? So that's in there. It's downtown Philadelphia. It's the entrance for a new hospital. And they wanted me to do something that made people feel at peace. If you know anything about Stonehenge, big influence on me, or Cycladic art from the Cyclades. I wanted you to walk into, here's the hospital entrance, you walk through here, and it's all cut in different ways, so the light hits it at different times of the day very differently, and you can walk in between the sculptures, and from one entranceway it looks like one sculpture, here it looks like three, from this side it looks like two, so you constantly feel it's changing, because if you have to go into a hospital often, you want to have something that you feel comfortable with, but constantly changes. This was my first large outdoor sculpture that I got from Jane Blaffer Owen. I will honestly say there are a few people that change your life. She changed my life. I met her. I was in a small museum show in St. Louis. She came and saw one of my small sculptures. It was this big, and we'll see one of them in the other room. And she said to me, "This is so beautiful. Do you know that my husband is Robert Dale Owen, the great-grandson of the first Utopian Society in America, in New Harmony, Indiana? I commission artists to do large outdoor pieces. Would you like to do one?" And I said, "Would I like to do one? Sure. Who's paying for it?" And she goes, "Don't worry about the money." She gave me her plane. I had to find the right granite from South Dakota. This floods once a year. And I picked this. It's by the Wabash River. So for 11 months a year, it's beautiful flatlands. There are great fields here, and once a year it floods like this. And to me, she calls it the Angel of Mercy. I call it Shalev. This is a synagogue I did in Milwaukee. Also, I'm very proud of this. I was commissioned by an amazing family, the Cole family. They have Cole department stores. They asked me, the only thing they said to me, "You can do whatever you want. We want you to do a series of images based on creation." And I said, "I've already done the 7 days. I don't want to do that." And they said, "All right, what do you want to do?" I said, "What about all different forms of creation?" And they said, "Fine." And I said, "What about color?" And they said, "Well, we only want you to use white, silver, and gold." I said, "Done. I'll do whatever you want." And that's why it's in those colors. And then I wanted the eternal light. Pomegranate is one of the oldest Jewish symbols in the world. I wanted to do a pomegranate that you could see from outside and inside. So there's a beautiful glass outside here. So from the highway you can see it. And these are the two arched doors, and these are two menorahs. This is sky and water installations, which I've done many of them around the world. This, to me, is the most religious piece I've done, because I believe very much in heaven and earth and God creating the world. And these are 30 different variations of how sky and water look. They're all based on photographs. By the way, everything here is based on photographs I've taken. These are from all over in the world. Then we come to the healthcare chaplaincy. The first, I was commissioned by this through Rabbi Michal Springer, introduced me to Father Walter Smith. And right after September 11th, he commissioned me to do a meditative room. I don't know if you know who James Turrell is, I think one of the greatest light artists, Robert Irwin, many great light artists. I wanted to do something that you walked in and you felt holiness around you and purification, because it's water. And I did early set designs with Joe Papp at the Public Theater. And through Liz Swados and Joe Papp, I learned about theatrical foam. So he had said to me, "I want a meditative space." And I said, "Well, a meditative space to me as a Jew means it only can fit 9 people, because we have a quorum of 10 will make a service." So I made it here with 3 chairs and 2 benches for 3 chairs. He originally wanted a Hebrew Bible, a Quran, all these different prayer books for this interfaith space. And I said, no. If you're going to really meditate, I want no places to put your books. The books can be outside, and if you want to bring a book in, you take it in yourself. There are 3 different light forms in here. I really wanted a hole in the ceiling, which would be like a Turrell, but it was on the 4th floor and there were floors above it. So I lost 2 feet, and I made a curving so it feels like this is outdoor light, but it's not. It's just fake. And we have tungsten, fluorescent, and iridescent light. So when you're in the space, you choose how to do it. Jane Blaffer saw this and commissioned me to do another one. Rabbi Rachel Cowan, another. I mean, I got many commissions to do other pieces after this. This was a Holocaust memorial I did for the city of La Jolla. This was another very powerful project. The city asked me to do something in memory of the Holocaust, but they didn't want it to have the word Jewish on there because it's on public land. So we had to come up, and that's one of the most important things of learning how to work with the community. We decided to write all the major newspapers and say anyone who lost a relative, mother, father, sister, brother, any close relatives could put down the name and pay $18, because 18 means life, and we would have their name of the person that was killed by the Nazis in here. The thing that turned out so fascinating, of the, I think it was 10,000 or 11,000 names, everyone was Jewish, which was fascinating. And we then took a vote by these people, what do you want written on top? So they said Zachor, which means remember, Gedankt, which is Yiddish for that, and Zachor, remember, and Gedankt. And it says San Diego families, didn't say families whose family perished in the Holocaust. So this was a very exciting project for me because this is in front of a children's area, and I wanted it to feel not depressing. So this is like a mother giving back water, and this is a child beseeching the mother. And on all the stones, it says all the camps where people were deported from. And then
you got all the names on there?
We got every name on there. That's 10. That's wow. Every. I know, it's unbelievable. And then on another wall, I decided to have the righteous families who hid families. So we have another wall that had very few, unfortunately, but all the families that hid, San Diego families during the war that didn't perish. And then Nessa helped me write the whole history on the front wall from Kristallnacht until the end of World War II. This is Sky and Water, and I wanted one installation in the exhibition that was blue and blue. As anyone who knows me knows, I think blue is the Jewish color. It's the chelet, hello, and it's so powerful. And I wanted to do a whole series. This is the only piece in the exhibition I don't own anymore, but they were, and this is the top of my SAPHYR document is this, because this to me is like holy mackerel. And it's all different blues and blues of different stages, and it's one piece. So it's about the idea, again, in diversity in the world. I want you to understand that every human being is special, and I love that. Then we get to this, and I have to say this, I was commissioned by Rachel Cowan. She was head of the Jewish spirituality, I don't remember the whole name, but she wanted me to do something for her that was like a road that you felt like your life is on a constant road of movement. And if you look at this, the brush strokes, and there it goes right across, and here it goes in the shape of each individual unit. And again, gold and white. We're going to get to these three. So Ness and I, when we always laugh that we're very different people. We both love nature. I love bare trees. I just think they're gorgeous because you see the bones. Nessa loves trees in full blossom. So this is the shadow of trees. So this is not really, there's nothing here. This is a shadow of a tree going down, and these are just the birch branches. And this is in Central Park. And this one, to me, is a fascinating thing of what I think of as the Garden of Eden. That Adam and Eve were in there, and here are these two trees that are almost talking to each other. If you look at books on trees, I don't know if you know this, trees talk to each other. So here are these two trees that are almost dancing with each other, and their leaves become a beautiful bonnet over the whole thing. This is another piece that I really love, and I have to attribute this to Rabbi Yehuda Amital. There's a prayer for the new month. It's called the moon dance. You say a blessing when the moon is coming full, and this is a little figure dancing with the moon around it. This is what the smaller sculptures look like before they become huge pieces. This is an Elijah's cup. This is one of the memorial lamps that I've done. Then we'll get right to here, and this is for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. It's a honey and apple set, and I've always minded that in many groups, you get drunk on New Year's Eve, and it's like, it's an old man and a baby comes the next year, and I figure like, you didn't learn anything from the year before. Why not every year on Rosh Hashanah it's a dancer at the height of her skill as a dancer, holding the honey. I love Rodin, and this is like a Rodin hand holding the apples down there, and that's a baby spoon that holds the honey that goes into the apple, and then you pass that out. This is for a citron holder, an etrog holder. This is another powerful piece. This is called a menorah. It's for the holiday of Hanukkah. And if anyone knows, I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to give you a present if you don't know this. Anyone know what flower continues to grow after you cut it? Anyone know? It is a tulip. If you don't believe me, my wife didn't believe me once, and on a Friday I brought her home roses and tulips. By the next morning it had grown an inch. So I decided, why not make the shape of the Chanukiah in the shape of a tulip, like the story of oil only lasting for one day, it lasts for 8 days. Tulips continue to grow. The number 3 is very important in Judaism. I do a lot of images that have 3s. This piece over here, I was commissioned after September 11th by people whose family had been killed in 9/11 to do a memorial light for them. And I took a vessel, cracked the vessel, and when you put the light on, you see the 2 beams and all the oil, the wax comes out. This I wanted in the exhibition because way before I knew I was going to have a show here, I've always liked the windows from the Eldridge Street Museum. So this was done, I think, in 1999. But when I decided this has to be in the show because this is the same basis as upstairs. And then we're going to end with these 2 pieces, and that's how I wanted the show to end. I fervently believe that we have to watch this planet that we are destroying, and I think nature can be taken care of. And these are flowers that have not opened yet, that are the beautiful, it's looking towards the future. It's the outside pods of lilies. That's what they look like when they're closed. And these are other flowers in full bloom. And if you look at early 17th century Dutch and Flemish painting, a lot of them have flowers that are painted right before they fall apart. And I wanted to have side by side pre-opening of flowers and full flowers, so you realize that everything is a continuation and that we have to take care of our planet. So the last part of the exhibition is in the women's balcony upstairs, and we decided to have different pieces that really related to this space. So this is a new baby naming chair. I've done other baby naming chairs throughout my career. All the baby naming chairs I've done, the legs in the front are on different planes as the legs in the back, because I believe a child should come into the world and bring his or her unique being to the world. So if you conceptually fold the chair, the back doesn't get in the way of the front legs, so it becomes one beautiful continuity. The chair is made out of heavy-duty wood, so it doesn't move. So when you hold the baby to be named, you don't have to worry that something will happen to the baby. You sit right here. This is, again, an image of the inside of an orchid, because I think it's so beautiful to see how an orchid opens and so much happens from one small area. The back of the chair has a place to write all the children who were born and named on these chairs in the back. It's very sturdy, and it's easy to put your arms on something as you're holding the baby. These are 4 very different ceremonial objects, but I thought they worked beautifully together. I was asked by people who had many miscarriages to make a memorial piece for miscarriages, and this is a bronze piece that you see where the baby would have come from. It's like an open area of loss. Then you can put your hand and hold this being that never came into being. And it was very important to me that it was easy to touch and hold. So you felt this is something that never came to life, but it was the beginning of life. It's right next to a memorial light for people killed in the Holocaust. And it's supposed to feel like a gnarled figure all curled up, and the light in here is to put a candle to light for hope for the future that never was. This other piece is a very esoteric piece. There's a holiday that comes every 28 years for the birthday of the sun. It's called Birchat Achama, the blessing for the sun, and it's 28 different pieces that pull together, and once a year it opens, and there's a deeper gold inside. So if you look inside here, you will see this one piece closes that piece, and for one day every 28 years, you open it. I'm leaving it open because many people are not going to be here in 28 years. It's now only 25 years from now. So I wanted you to feel what it would look like once a year. The last piece in there is a Megillah holder. It's for the holiday of Purim, that you put a holy scroll in there, and I want it to feel very festive and joyful. So you have 4 very different experiences in one vitrine. The last vitrine are a series of different candlesticks, because I think people feel differently about the holiday of the Sabbath. So these are 4 different sets of 2 candlesticks. My wife has always loved flowers, so the bottom ones are the shape of an opening flower. There's another one with 2 women's shapes, because I wanted it to feel like the woman of valor for the Sabbath. Another one feels very much like a torch, that you want to show the light to the world. And the 4th one is red. Red is a color to keep away the evil spirit. And it's about an amalgam of putting everything together. And then there's a piece for holding the candle at the end of the Sabbath. There's a special service you have with a candle, with wine, and with incense. And this was really something that my son asked me to do at that time. He loved acorns and rocket ships. He said, why don't you make a spice holder in the shape of that? So this was for spices at the end of the Sabbath, and this is for the candle at the end of the Sabbath. This is the second of the 3 mezuzahs that I was commissioned by Eldridge Street. The last one is going to be at the entrance of the synagogue itself, which will be put up in the next month or 2. This is one up here, and I used the glass that came from the windows that were destroyed. And again, this one is gold, the one downstairs is silver, and then the one in the entrance will be blue. And it's using all the glass that was from the original windows. And I like the way it feels in your hands. People have a tradition of kissing the mezuzah when they enter a room, so you'll touch the original glass from these windows. Here is a QR code, thanks to Bloomberg Connects. If you want to hear me speak about every piece in the show, there are 50 pieces in the show. You'll hear 2 or 3 sentences about every piece. You go to this, it says Memory and Inheritance, Paintings and Ceremonial Objects by Tobi Kahn. You will actually have the chance to hear me talk about every piece in the exhibition. I hope you can see the exhibition, but if you can't, at least then you can see all the works in the collection online. Thank you for hearing this, and I hope you enjoy the exhibition.